Good evening. My name is John, and I'm here with Lisa Medina, and this is going to be a great show. Very informative. There's a lot of topics we can go, and one of the things is the departments that you're in charge of. It's environmental health.
Yes, the agricultural
department,
animal services, on-site wastewater.
Got it.
Yes, so quite a few.
So basically, all the problem departments they gave to you, is that? I'm just kidding. Well, tell us a little bit about you. Tell how you got to the county and other.
Sure. So back in 2015, I was working in San Joaquin County. I've been with San Joaquin County for over 20 years. And one of my favorite things to do, and part of my role and responsibilities working for San Joaquin County, was emergency response.
Got it.
And also CUPA, which is a Certified Unified Program Agency. Those particular types of programs incorporate hazardous material emergency response to hazardous material spills, inspection of underground storage tanks, above ground storage tanks, and hazardous material business plans for businesses.
Wow.
So we received the call.
And there's none of that in San Joaquin County, huh?
Oh, none at all.
Yeah.
It was a great place to work. I do miss that place too, but I love it here.
Yeah.
So part of my duties and responsibilities were a health and safety officer, and also worked in the CUPA as an emergency response and hazardous material inspector. So we received a call through Emma, through the state, that Calaveras County needed specialists, specifically registered environmental health specialists, to respond to assist them with some of the identification of the different types of parcels that had been burned, and identification of the hazardous materials.
Got it.
Basically to do an overall assessment of the
Yes.
properties. So I said, oh, I want to go, and
So
my director
because
at
we had
that
a
time.
we had a whole huge portion of the county that was a hazardous waste cleanup spot,
Yes,
right?
unfortunately, that was affected. So I deployed to Calaveras County for several months. My first deployment was to do the assessments of the properties that were located throughout Calaveras County. We worked with our Environmental Management Agency team and their inspectors, Jason Boetzer, Kelly EPA, and several other entities and agencies collaborating to make sure that these sites were cleaned up and assessed appropriately, including DTSC.
Right.
So I did that for probably about 2 months, as working, coming back and forth and commuting, and I was solely responsible for that, along with some of my other coworkers. And that was quite a stint, and we would go out every day and go to the different sites, and our duties included not only assessment, but doing inventory, looking at different types of hazardous materials that would need to be identified, rescuing animals even. We were tasked with that.
Yeah.
And then I was called back, and my third and fourth deployment was working in the Joint Information Center as a public information officer. So that was quite exciting.
Yeah.
And position happened to come up about back in 2016, and I applied as the environmental health manager, and they selected me.
Very
so
cool.
I was very happy to come back.
Very nice. Yeah, some of those Butte fire. I can only imagine on some of the inspections. Some of the stuff was just. It's heart wrenching. It's just gut. Yeah.
Yes. And I think one of the most important aspects, of our jobs is, sometimes we can go and conduct an inspection, talk to the people, but in that type of situation, it was a little different. You had to still complete your job, but you had to bring your heart with you. There was several different occasions where people, didn't want us on their property.
Sure.
I have this one favorite little story of a gentleman that would not let anybody on his property. So I happened to stop there one day, and I had this bag of peanuts. They were some spicy peanuts, and I stopped, and I can see the gentleman come up to me, and he's asking me what I'm doing there. I said, I'm just trying to take a little lunch break, would you like some of my peanuts?
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at me, he goes, well, sure, those are my favorite peanuts. And so I shared my peanuts with him, and he gave us access to his property, and it was just a very good feeling.
Everybody had to sign off on the form, right?
Yes, it was a right of entry form, so
Yes.
that's something that we were able to facilitate and go on through. But it's one of those situations where you kind of have to use your heart. We went out there too.
What was the total number of parcels? I know.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to recall. There were quite a few.
Because it got to be a pretty systematized process, right?
Yes,
and then,
yes,
because
it was.
it was a scrape it clean and.
They had to be evaluated, first of all, through environmental health.
Right.
And then we worked closely with DTSC, the Department of Toxics, to do that evaluation. And then from there, they would come in, Cal Recycle would come in.
Right.
And they contracted with different debris removal companies to assess the sites and remove the debris, separate the hazardous materials and remove them accordingly. And then soil sampling.
Carson, they did quite a bit of it, didn't they? Did a lot of it?
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
They had different contractors going throughout, the whole Butte fire response and recovery as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that people don't realize is, it's like the Butte fire and that Paradise fire. I remember the Paradise fire last year. I don't want to get too much into fire stuff, but if you recall in the Paradise fire, it was only like 3 days before we had our first drenching rain. In fact, it was that Paradise fire. They switched from fire to mud control, instantly. It was, and I think people realize, you think you get after Labor Day weekend, everything's, we're still, but it's always October, even early November when these brutal, I mean, the, Rim fire was mid-September, Butte fire was September and October. I mean, it's just, people realize it, it's now.
Yeah, I'll never forget that date, November 15th, 2015.
Yep.
And I was deployed a little less than 2 months after that from San Joaquin County to come here.
Yeah.
And it was quite the experience, but I'm glad that we were able to assist, and I'm glad I'm here.
Good. Well, don't want to waste too much time
of course.
but a little bit of stuff. Let's say I know with Animal Services, are they getting ready to build a new, what's the status, I know, of the new home for the...
So right now what we're doing is we're working at establishing some type of plan. We're looking at plans, and we're kind of going back and forth, and we're communicating with some of our partners to establish that, to make a preliminary plans for a new animal shelter. Would it be in the same spot,
or would it be, because I know the county actually has enough land there, whereas it would be, or
yes, that's what we're looking at. It's pretty much that same designated
area. The same spot.
Area.
Okay. All right, and I think has funding already been kind of lined up for the building, for the infrastructure for it, or is it?
Not that I know
of.
No, that's one of our goals and objectives for this year is to do a little bit more digging in and doing the research to get that developed, because we've been talking about an animal shelter for the last 20 years.
Oh yeah,
and that animal shelter was built, I believe, back in 1962.
Yeah,
I won't tell you how old I am.
Yeah, the animal shelter thing. It's like, I know that's one of the pet projects of Marita, is when, every time she's been on the board, it's, let's do the animal shelter thing, but, so nothing really
Nothing solid, but definitely that's going to be one of my goals and objectives as the interim environmental management agency administrator, is to look a little bit more and to get that processed and a little bit more, put a little bit more oomph in it per se.
Now the ag side of it, what falls under your thing on the ag department?
So the agricultural department is under the environmental management agency. We do have an ag commissioner who is pretty much the one that oversees the department's operations and procedures. Included that there's a vast amount of responsibilities and roles as a commissioner. Not only do they look at the weights and measures, but they look at the stationary sources to see if they're, for example, an example of that would be cattle weights. Weighing the cattle during specific seasons, weighing the scales that they use, for the industry for grapes. There's all kinds of different things. They also look at pest management. We look to see, we set traps in people's backyards to see if there's any glassy-eyed, sharp-eyed wing shooters or whatever that specific species is called, gypsy moths, things of that nature that can have a detrimental effect on our agricultural. Such as our fruits and our vegetables and so forth. And there's a lot of different things that we do.
We've been kind of keeping a handle on that kind of stuff. I mean, we don't have anything immediate threats on that?
There are no immediate threats. The last immediate threat that we were kind of alerted to, of course, was the seeds that were being allegedly packaged in China.
Did that go through your office?
That did go through our office.
Was there any follow? Were they sent off to a lab or anything to figure out what they were?
Yes, so we were directed, through the feds and through our state, U.S. Department of Agricultural, to actually contain those packages, and we sent out an actual PSA, public service announcement, that I went ahead and drafted and made sure that got out. As soon as I found out about it, I wanted to get ahead of it. I didn't want to have to react. I wanted to be able to, respond immediately. And so we were directed to let our community know that if they did have any of those packages, to take them directly to our ag commissioner.
Right.
And they had a separate location in a specific area where we housed all those plants and or seeds. And we even had some people that actually started to grow the seeds.
They did?
Yes. Ultimately, it was...
Which actually could be a risk if they were some type of hybrid or something like that kind of becomes invasive, right? Isn't that...
That is correct.
Okay.
They not only could become invasive, but, they could ruin the current crops that
Right.
we have growing.
Right.
And affect it just incrementally, because as we know, everything has a different step. It
Right.
could affect our bees. It could affect the production of different fruits and vegetables and harvesting and all the different types of things that we have available here in Calaveras County.
I guess to get off the conspiracy theory stuff on that, wasn't that mostly just so that they could leave a review? Wasn't there like a financial thing on that behind, to where if a customer got a product, they could legally put a review on a like a shipment? I mean, there was actually a financial reason that was happening.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any of the fallout from that.
Okay.
What we were mostly concerned about was the detrimental effects that would have on our community and to our existing agricultural environment here.
We got some calls and stuff on the toothpaste one. Did that end up in your office as well?
We heard about the toothpaste, yes.
Okay.
And everything packaged was supposed to go directly to the ag commissioner. Yes.
And what were they? Just normal? What did they ever find out what the seeds were? Did they?
They varied. They varied from different melon varieties, to cucumbers, to different seeds that were either repackaged or prepackaged, or it was they came in a variety of different packaging.
So the year still has a few months left. So we could get the murder hornets here right after the. But I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, I don't identify with that species.
The hornets. Remember the hornets that were up in Washington State that were supposed to be the...
Oh, like the killer bees.
Yeah, the killer bee.
Yes,
yeah. Now, one of the things I know we talked about this a little before is under environmental health is one of the things that's been, because I have 2 young adult sons.
Yes.
And one of the things that I think is we have some younger generations that don't believe, or they have a hard time believing that kind of the American dream type of stuff is still possible. Let's say somebody buys a piece of land and they want to build their own house, do their own, and on the septic side, they always hear the stories that, it's going to be 20 grand for a septic, Now, is that really true? Or what is it, what are some of the costs if you're doing, let's say you're developing a small piece of, not in-house, not in town where it's like a homeowners association, you have all the other layers of, where you have access to sewer hookups or something, but let's say somebody buys a 5-acre parcel or something. How, for environmental health, I know you have the well side of it,
yes.
But on the septic side, what are they looking at?
So typically what happens is an owner, what we call the responsible party of the parcel, will come in, they'll make application first of all to my partners over at the building and the planning department to see even if it's zoned for the appropriate type of a building that they are wanting to build. And then they will come and visit us at Environmental Health, or specifically our on-site wastewater department, and put in an application. What has to be determined first is what type of soil is in the ground. Is it something that will accept, the wastewater stream is what we call it, from the septic system.
So if it's all rock, it'll just bounce off rather than perk in,
well,
right?
We have quite a bit of what we call lithology, fractured rock, throughout our county. We're looking for like what's classified as a sandy loam. It's something that's going to percolate and the water's going to travel down. It's going to biodegrade. So we're looking for specific types of soil types that will accept the water and do their duty.
Right. What are, I know not, you can't, the hard costs, but what are, rough figures? Is it always 20, 30,000, or what do you, or if somebody's willing to do some of the stuff themselves, is it less than?
What we're looking at your, let's say, for example, you have a soil profile that reveals good soils.
Sure.
Something that we can say we can install what we call a standard sewage disposal system. That includes, rock-filled trenches, of course the septic tank, that divides the solids, and the liquids, and then what we call a leach field. So that would be consistent of what we call a standard sewage disposal system.
Right.
You're looking at, permitting fees, with environmental health, for the standard system. The septic tank, I'm not too sure, what the cost is that day. And in my days when I was working in what I fondly term as the dirt unit, which was the septic and the water well unit, tanks at that time for a 1,200 gallon tank were running a couple thousand.
Right.
So it's something that's definitely doable.
So the components aren't really that expensive, right? Isn't that?
The components for a standard system, no, because you're looking at the septic tank, you're looking at the rock, you're looking also at the pipe, the perforated pipe and the tight line pipes that are part of the construction of the system. So no. What does get a little pricey is if you have the type of soil where doesn't percolate very well. You're looking at fractured rock. You're looking at something where you would have to install an engineer design sewage disposal system. And those can get a little pricey.
Because they have pumps and all the rest of that stuff.
They have a lot of electrical components in them. They have to be designed a certain way.
Right.
You have to pay someone that's qualified to do that assessment and actually design the sewage disposal system for you.
A dumb question, and I know because everybody's trying to think green and more environmental stuff, is I know for a lot of years everybody's always says if you're on city sewer, into a system like that, but some of that stuff it seems like because how many years have we taken all of our wastewater and all of the none of the water goes back into the ground on the parcel. We pump it someplace else, and it's all literally evaporated off. How much? If you think about, groundwater level droppings and all the rest of the stuff, as a state, how many millions or billions of gallons a year now? Instead of, I'm not trying to say septic is perfect, but I'm saying is in some ways, as far as groundwater recharge and everything else, at least you're keeping moisture on the parcel as long as it's treated correctly and stuff. How many? You wonder, how many billions of gallons a year are we literally just evaporating out? We're pumping it to a central location and just evaporating out. At some point, is the wheel going to turn to where we think, oh, you know what? Maybe that's not the best way for us to handle waste. Is it?
So I believe that today's consciousness is related to just that. Right now, we are looking at groundwater sustainability.
Right.
And where is the water going? Who's using it? How are they using it?
Yeah.
Is this something that's going to be able to be sustainable for many generations? So California stakeholders, Regional Water Quality Control Board, their state water board, they're taking a hard look at that. And come here in a few years, every entity is going to have some type of plan in order to mitigate those types of water waste.
Right.
Where are they getting their water? Which aquifers are they getting it from? Our water levels, for in a domestic water well, we always try to measure the static water level, and that's the level which usually will typically tell you what type of water you're going to get and where is it. During a drought, that static water level might drop significantly.
And we have certain areas in the county that had the decrease. That were
yes, yes. And one of the projects that we are working right now is to determine which wells within our counties are marked just for that. Which ones do not generate what we call gallons per minute, and for a water well to be sufficient, to be able to support a family, what we would call a standard system or a standard living system. a family of 4,
Sure.
per se. Depending on their type of use,
Yeah.
is that well being used for agricultural purposes?
Right.
Maybe they have some livestock, that they need to
Mhm.
take care of. Maybe
Mhm.
they have some agricultural duties or responsibilities, different types of things that might be on their property.
Right.
So it all depends on the type of use.
I didn't mean to come at that at a weird angle, but I just
No, it's
thought,
okay.
we've been looking at this to where you think as a state, especially down in the Central Valley, San Joaquin County, where we have dropping water levels, even the level of the soils compacting stuff, and we've pulled, in a weird way, sometimes at least for ag use, there was some level of groundwater recharge because you kept the moisture on the parcel.
Mhm.
But in some of these things, like cities, Stockton, Modesto, and everything else, yeah, some of it goes to a golf course, or there is some of that. But by and large, most of it's just we evaporate it all. I mean, it's just gone.
Yes, unfortunately, and that's all part of the hydrological cycle
Yeah.
as well. And so there's a whole science behind that. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of a geek when it comes to
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I won't.
But do you think
bother
that,
you about
because I know obviously safety is the most, is the
Definitely
most,
number one.
obviously you want, the bugs need to get killed, and, the
Yes.
water has to be safe. But that used to be, that can't be the only determining factor anymore, because what happens to this water? I mean, are we doing, because aren't there things like for groundwater recharge and stuff for a lot of the Central Valley now, where they're starting to look at trying to force water back into the aquifer down?
Yes, there are ways to capture that water and bring it back into the groundwater table, recirculation, those types of things, injection wells, the water that comes from the weather, or not from the weather, but from events, rain events and that type of thing. They are looking at trying to capture that and try to regenerate it and to reestablish that into the groundwater table, and that's something that they are, and that's all part of the sustainability.
Right. I guess, do you think it, is there, without throwing some weird, but are there looking at, on the green side of it, alternative waste disposal systems? I mean, everybody's, not the tiny house movement and all the composting toilet stuff or
Yes.
anything. I mean, no, that's, that's.
Yeah, I always like to collaborate, with our partners,
Right.
and we're always seeking to look at different types of methods that we might be able to use, in order to meet our community's needs. There are specific things within our ordinance, our on-site sewage disposal, what we call our local agency management plan.
Right.
It's 13.12 is our ordinance that will give some options for that.
Sure.
But typically right now it's only in the instance if a sewage disposal system is failing.
Right.
So we're always looking to improve. We're always we get our group of sewage disposal contractors together, our C42 licensed contractors, and we have group meetings, to
Sure.
try to collaborate and get their ideas. Some of our pumper operators for the pumper vehicles. So we want to start working at developing those work groups again. We were doing that pre-COVID. And that's something that I would like to start up again, because
Sure.
we get a lot of great ideas when we collaborate, with our partners and our stakeholders and our business operators and owners.
Now, you wanted to spend a lot of time talking about COVID and restaurants and everything else, right? Isn't that? No, I'm just kidding.
I can certainly.
Just kidding.
I'm ready to answer any questions you might have.
No, I guess that because food inspections are under your bailiwick as
That's
well,
correct.
right? Correct.
Yes.
Is it I know that the supervisors rushed through that ordinance to allow food service outside. That was a
Yes.
very well done. I mean, speed. Try to keep some of our local restaurants alive.
Yes, we put that together in about 3 days, and
Yeah, that was
we were
pretty
very
impressive.
proud. Our team
Yeah.
with planning and the
Right.
economic development department, our partners over at Angels Camp and building and other
Right.
entities too. So we were really proud of that. We were able
So-
to produce that.
Not only because you looked, I mean, the kitchen facilities should be there, but was there anything that you guys had to look at as far as they moved serving areas outside, as far as like wash stations or bus stations, or was there anything
So
particular?
under that particular ordinance and under our Kel code, any type of food preparation is not allowed under that particular temporary
Correct.
ordinance.
Yeah.
However, what is allowed are temporary events, like you go to, let's say, for example, in Stockton, the Asparagus Festival, or, Frog Jump or Calaveras. Right. Those are things that we would allow under a temporary event. What we had to be really careful of is making sure people that they were educated and they had the information to make those decisions. We gave them guidance. We put together some email blasts out to our food facility operators and owners. They also had to develop a template to make sure that they weren't taking any additional risks.
Right.
And that's something that we provided to them.
Right.
But our agency is all about making sure that we provide our community with as much education as we need. I fondly always say, we like to do education, because if we have to go towards the enforcement aspect of it, sometimes I feel that maybe we didn't get our message across. So that's something that I always try to keep my finger on the pulse and making sure our community has as much information as they can. Our community can call me up anytime too if they have any questions. So your
department isn't in charge of mask enforcement? I'm just sorry, I had to. Yeah, it's because it's
not yet.
Not yet. Okay. We're down to 3 minutes. And thank you for spending the time with us. But I guess for your departments, what would you like to get out as far as members of the community working with your departments? As far as what would you like to leave this stuff with?
I would just like to say, that at any time, we're open to any type of public communication, any public inquiry. If they need anything regarding any of our departments, air pollution control district. We also have that. I just actually developed, along with our air pollution control specialist, a PSA to get out.
For the smoke stuff?
Yes, yes. So we like to communicate the information to our public, so they can make the right decisions regarding their own health and the safety of their friends and families.
Right.
On-site wastewater, environmental health food programs. We have over 16 programs just under environmental health.
Right.
Our ag department has, our pesticide management. We have our weights and measures, and we have other different types of responsibilities, not only at that as well. Animal services.
Right.
We have quite a bit.
One of the things, because I know where there's been a lot of real estate transactions, new people moving to the area and stuff. I guess one of the things that I've always liked about small counties is, my experience is there's always been a cognizant effort by county departments to realize that small communities, they're more fragile. When we lose a business and stuff like that, I think that most of the department heads that I've dealt with, is you see that. You know that your job is to try to keep things rolling, not, and I've always liked,
Yes, we, number one is we want to support our businesses, our operators, and we do know that they're struggling. So anything that we can do, from our side to assist them is something that we're going to make a priority, definitely.
Great. Thank you so much for spending the time.
Thank you for having
Sorry
me.
I threw some of the joke.
No, it's okay. I totally understand. Thank you so much.
Sure. And thank you.